It's time for the Fear Podcast!
Monokuma!
It's me, Monokuma!
Alright, welcome Pennywise and Babadookers.
And Monokuma fans everywhere!
You're gonna piss the vengeful seagull gods off with this Monokuma nonsense.
Monokuma. So today we're reviewing a set of movies.
We're reviewing
As
a
we
set of
always
movies
do.
that we didn't,
A set of movies that I had movies that I had conflated with each other. So we were going to do the bad comedy episode. I feel like we've been putting up we've put off the bad comedy episode many times now.
Well, I wonder if it's because we don't want to watch bad comedy.
It's almost like this entire episode is just a ploy to stall me watching Kangaroo Jack as long as possible.
Actually, I don't even know if that's the next one in the list. It might be the Jackie Chan. No, it is the bad comedy episode because then we do the Jackie Chan episode as a palate cleanser.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. So we watched. So we were gonna do the bad comedy episode, but we pushed it forward because we found out that there are two movies with basically the exact same title and
that have nothing to do with each other.
I thought they had everything to do with each other, so this is a dilemma we had to resolve because so
Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium
and the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus. Now, both of these movies came out late 2000s.
Magorium came out in 2007. Parnassus came out in 2009.
And I had memories of watching one of them, but I couldn't remember which one it was. Okay, so the thing about the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus is Heath Ledger plays one of the key roles. Heath Ledger died halfway through, or like a third of the way through production.
Yeah.
So his character is constantly changing actors because they got other actors to play the character in these
other actors that Heath
scenes.
was friends with.
Yes. So I had a memory of watching a movie where a man owns a toy store and dies halfway through. And I remember that man being played by Heath Ledger, and Heath Ledger dying halfway through. But the movie with the toy store owner that dies halfway through is not the one with Heath Ledger.
It's Mr. Magorium's
Wonder Emporium, starring Dustin Hoffman.
Doing his best bad Gene Wilder impression.
Yeah, he's doing like bad Willy Wonka, but he's also like, he's talking with like a stupid voice.
With a stupid lisp.
But somehow, so I assumed the whole time we were watching Mr. Magorium, because we watched it first, I assumed the whole time that the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus was another movie with basically the same plot, but starring Heath Ledger, like a better version of Mr. Magorium.
Oh, how wrong you were.
And then the first 5 minutes of the Imaginarium, I knew something was very, very wrong. Because this was not the movie I remembered. But the crazy part is, even watching Mr. Magorium, that wasn't the movie I remembered either. I remember these like little snippets from Mr. Magorium. Like, I think I remember the wall turning gray because Mr. Magorium is about to die. Or the popping bubble wrap on the street scene. I remember these like out of context little things, but somehow I placed them in some more interesting version of the movie.
What? Okay, wait, hang on a second. Look at this poster for League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
That's a movie poster.
I like how
Sean Connery's face is like half hidden.
I like how Mina is wearing like this cleavage revealing dress that she never wears
in the movie. Oh yes. So after deciding we were going to watch Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium and the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus, we were like, what should the third movie be? And I just said, based on overly long title alone that the third movie we would watch would be League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Overly long, overly
The
flowery
League of
title.
Extraordinary Gentlemen, which would have been much better
if it had
starred my D&D character, the Baron.
Picture of the Baron here.
So the whole, basically all of these movies, like, okay.
LGX?
What? What do you? LXG.
LXG. That was
that their like marketing abbreviation?
Yes.
The LXG.
Gamer.
The only reason I mentioned my D&D character is Sean Connery's character is literally, he's doing this voice, and this is the voice that my D&D character has. And so not all of the lines sound like me doing my Baron
But
voice.
most of them.
But some of them sound so similar that, like, if I heard them out of context, I would think I was listening to a recording of one of our sessions.
Oh boy.
His main character, Alan Quartermain. I'm not convinced Alan Quartermain and the Baron are not related somehow. Also,
It started.
We'll talk about this
talk
movie
about
later.
it.
It's really
so
bad.
let's start with Mr. Magorium's Emporium.
Let's talk with
Wait, was there anything you watched? Is there anything Coleman Hahn that you can find at the YouTube channel Chuck Batman
and Kirk Zanetti that you can find at the Instagram Captain Kirk.
The Captain, the underscore Captain underscore.
And we're in a different location today.
We're at my parents' house.
Yes, you can find them in.
You can find them nowhere.
Dox their address.
I'm not gonna let you dox my parents.
Was there anything else? Okay, so the only things I've really watched I've been watching like stuff with my family lately, but I didn't really watch. Okay, I watched Klaus again, which was as
Still
good as
a
I
banger.
remembered. There's parts I'm not really like sympathetic crier at movies, but there are parts of that movie that always make me tear up. The part where they bring the
part with the girl, the sled.
The part where they bring the sled to the girl and she's riding the sled and the music like swells as she's like smiling and shouting is great. Oh,
that's probably my food.
Oh, go get your food. I'll just talk about movies I watched. I also watched Shrek 1 and 2. By the way, don't order delivery Five Guys. He ordered this one. What? It was a mistake. He ordered Five Guys like an hour ago. Anyway, I also watched Shrek 1 and Shrek 2, which Shrek 1 is... And perhaps you watched my hour-long retrospective. If you watched my Monokuma, did you watch my hour-long retrospective on all 4 Shrek movies, then you will know...
Do we want to pause while I eat?
We just started.
Okay.
Okay. We'll just pause after we're done.
We'll pause after your rant.
Yeah. I was just...
Shrek. You were talking about Shrek.
I was talking about how if you watched my hour-long Shrek-trospective that I released, probably about a year ago, more than a year ago by the time I upload this, you'll know that I perhaps did not give Shrek 1 the proper appreciation that it should have had. I can't talk like that the whole time.
Don't do a Baron voice the whole time. We're gonna get negative views if you do that.
The view count goes down. I think I may not have given Shrek 1 enough credit. Watching it in a marathon with the other 3 movies made it very easy to forget what actually is very good about Shrek.
Well, I think another problem is just that the other Shrek movies are better.
Yeah, Shrek 2 is definitely better. I'm not denying that. But I do think, watching them in a marathon, I was like, I think Shrek Forever After is around the same level as the first Shrek, and I'm not sure which one is better or not. I said Shrek Forever After was better after watching them all, but then rewatching Shrek 1, I'm like, maybe not. I can't decide.
You said Shrek Forever After was better than Shrek 2?
No, better than the first Shrek.
Oh.
Shrek 2 is the undisputed king. The
Shrek trilogy. The Shrek trilogy.
Yeah, Shrek the Third does not exist.
The third entry was Forever After.
Oh, yeah. Shrek 2 is like the rare sequel that it's so
takes everything good about the original and then just like reframes it in an interesting way.
It so perfectly builds on the world of the universe that you can't even like it so perfectly builds on the universe that it changes how you view the first movie.
Right.
Which is like the ideal pinnacle for a sequel, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, watch Shrek 1 and Shrek 2. And also watch Klaus. And also watch Disney Pixar's Soul. I made a review of that already, so I'm not going to go
really
into
good.
it. But it's definitely, I think it's one of the more original, better Pixar movies released in the last.
Because they've mostly just been releasing.
They've mostly been on a sequel streak, you know?
A sequel streak and like the occasional really good one. But
I never saw Coco.
Coco was really good, but like.
Do you think it was as good as Soul?
I think it's about the same as Soul.
Okay.
But like I think the problem with Coco is just that it kind of got buried because of the 30-minute preview they added for Frozen 2.
Oh God, was that to Coco? Oh,
yeah. So like
Disney, why you be doing Pixar like
this? No one really talked about Coco. They just talked about how much they hated the fact that Coco was attached to this.
Why you be doing Pixar like this, Disney? Nobody wants to see Olaf's butthole adventures.
Olaf's butthole adventures.
And on that note,
the worst JoJo.
Monokuma, I don't want to watch Olaf's butthole adventures anymore.
Mr. Monokuma's murderous Emporium.
Yeah, let's talk about Mr. Monokuma's murder Emporium. Which is the movie that Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium would have been much more... We all agree it would have been much more interesting if it was Monokuma's.
Yeah.
Alright. Anyway.
We're back. A dinosaur story. So, Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium.
Murder Emporium! A movie so forgettable that...
You created a better movie.
A movie so forgettable... It's a little at a weird angle. Hold on. A movie so forgettable, that probably looks no different. A movie so forgettable, don't go up there, it's fine, it's fine.
A movie so forgettable that we're not even bothering.
Talking about this instead.
Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium is a 2007 family/children's fantasy comedy film written and directed by Zach Helm. Produced by film.
None of those other people matter because Zach Helm is the one to blame for all.
Zach Helm is the man behind the slaughter.
So I mentioned earlier when I was comparing these two, when I was talking about these two movies, this is the children's movie where the man runs the magical toy store and he dies halfway through and he has to pass it on to somebody.
Right.
But in my head, I created a much more interesting movie where Heath Ledger is the toy store owner. He dies halfway through,
but
and then I guess I don't know.
They had to create a secondary protagonist.
Well, and then the girl character played by Natalie Portman, whose name was Molly Mahoney or something like that.
Molly Mahoney.
Yeah, something stupid. In my mind, in my vague idea of this movie, it was like he dies and she goes on some whimsical adventure to some fantasy realm that convinces her to run the toy store after he's gone.
So you wanted Bridge to Terabithia?
Yeah, I wanted this movie, but they actually go to a fantasy realm at some point. I was waiting this whole movie for them to actually go to somewhere whimsical or interesting, but every time it looks like they're about to do something interesting, they just cut back to...
Have you ever heard of this movie called Willy Wonka?
But every time they're about to do something interesting, they just cut back to either Natalie Portman moping and trying to play the piano, or Jason Bateman, the accountant character, bonding with the kid character for no reason.
Okay, so this is a good point to talk about what a bizarre view. Like, despite how boring and mediocre this movie was, we had a very bizarre experience watching it because it felt like we were watching two different versions of the same movie that then got edited together into one movie.
There's clearly at least two versions of this movie because you have Molly Mahoney, who's this 20-something girl who runs the toy, helps with the toy store, who Mr. Magorium picks to run it,
and she has to learn to trust her imagination.
And then you simultaneously have this kid who spends all his time at the store and doesn't know how to make friends, and his arc is about making friends. And you think you literally can't tell till the end of the movie which one of them is going to
despite
become
being related, despite the two of them being siblings and related, the only thread.
Related.
Yes, they were.
The kid and her.
I think so.
No, they weren't. The kid was just some random kid.
Oh my god,
Okay.
Okay, so despite the way he described it, the only thing that connects these two threads,
is that
even
they love
slightly,
Mr. Magorium.
Is that they love Mr. Magorium, but more specifically that Jason Bateman is
You've made that mistake before.
Is vaguely connected to both threads, where like Jason Bateman is like the hard-nosed lawyer who learns hard-nosed accountant who hard-nosed accountant.
Okay, the proper version of this story,
who learns to love imagination and by proxy gets Molly to learn to like trust her imagination so that she can run the store.
But at the same time, the kid also plays a part in getting her to trust her.
But then he has a parallel story where he's like being the surrogate step-in father.
I mentioned the kid has no friends. He makes friends with the accountant character. You can tell there's two different scripts because there's a bit early in the movie where the kid and Jason Bateman are communicating by writing
like things on like paper.
Yeah, they write like hi to each other and hold it up to a window. Then later in the movie, Jason Bateman's character does the same thing, but he does it to the girl instead of to the kid. So clearly there was some version of this movie where both of those scenes were with one character. And somehow they got split into being with two different characters.
Further evidence for this point, there's a mom character who shows up only in the kids subplot and never in the Molly subplot.
And when Molly actually discovers her magic abilities, it's all thanks to Jason Bateman, accountant, not the kid. The kid disappears whenever her arc is completing, and she disappears when his arc is completed. So
the only time they're ever in the same room is what we think is the secret third cut of this movie,
where Jason Bateman is the protagonist. Everyone is the protagonist,
and it's a rip-off of Night at the Museum.
Because there's bits where like all the toys go wild because Mr. Magorium, they don't want him to leave.
There's also possibly even a fourth version of this movie because the movie has two different endings.
Yeah,
there's an ending where Molly gets this magic cube
box called the Congreve Cube,
and the more she believes in it, the more magical it becomes.
And notice the box never actually does anything magical until the end of the movie, and only when Jason Bateman's character is there.
Yeah.
So you think, and the box so it starts jumping around. They're like, "What's going on?"
And
follow the box. Then the box flies into the air. Both of them pass out. We cut to the second ending.
And then the second ending, it opens with Jason Bateman waking up in the store, being like, it's still dark and dank and no longer magical, and Molly is still trying to sell the store, even though she just had this magical experience.
And he's like, what about your magical experience? And she's like, I don't remember that. And she never rememers that. She just has a separate magical experience. And the cube is nowhere to be. And then
it ends with like a sock monkey
hugging Jason Bateman.
Yes.
This movie is forced whimsy to a ridiculous degree.
So much so that their music is even called whimsical.
Yeah, we saw the words whimsical music several times in the subtitles, all the dialogue. Even the character who's supposed to be, start out at least as the asshole who's not into the whimsy, Jason Bateman.
He acts weirdly like he plays along with their jokes. He's not doing the deadpan thing like he should be.
He is in some scenes, but it's so weird in the early movie because
his introduction scene is him walking into the toy store and unintentionally cracking jokes with Doctor Magorium.
Early on, the movie that scene he literally goes from being like the asshole cynic to cracking jokes to then being the cynic again in the same scene. And then
when the kid shows up, he starts acting like the overworked dad.
It sucks because he's basically, if you've seen Ozark, he's basically playing his character in Ozark, this hyper, or really any Jason Bateman character, this hyper anal,
Jason Bateman character,
hyper anal, overly critical it just has to be this way. They have this whole thing where he keeps saying just, and then they pick on him for it. They also call him mutant for no reason. They just like bully him. Everybody else does.
Yeah, but the kid does, Molly does, Mr. Magorium
and
does.
He never said
all
anything
three
about
of them.
It.
All three of them are assholes.
Yeah.
They're not just assholes to Weston. They're also assholes to just a lot of people in general.
There's this other guy who like lives in the basement of the shop. This like bald tattooed man named Bellini, who Mr. Magorium describes as having been born in the basement, and we are convinced that that guy is just a slave to the toy store that can't leave.
Mr. Magorium canonically has at least one, if not several.
That's why
slaves that grew up, that he had as children, that he gained as children, that then grew up to work for him.
That's why this would be better if it was a Monokuma movie, because then, like, if it was like a pastiche of like the whimsical Willy Wonka story,
like a dark take
yeah.
on it or something,
and it feels like it has these like
there's
moments
one
where
scene
it almost does that.
Yeah, there's like one scene where like because Mr. Magorium is trying to leave.
All the store rebel.
Yeah.
And that was like something interesting was starting to happen, but then their solution was to just take Mr. Magorium to a hospital for the night because he said he's gonna die and they're concerned about him dying. Or committing suicide, I guess. Which honestly is realistic, but in the whimsical universe they set up, it feels completely
it's like
ham-fisted.
Yeah.
Even the hospital they take him to looks whimsical.
It looks like it's
from yellow and white color.
It looks like it's in a Wes Anderson movie.
Somehow I completely usually when you rewatch a movie you haven't seen in a long time, you kind of remember it, right? I didn't remember this. I spent the entire movie convinced that the one I had watched as a kid was the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus. Because I only remembered the briefest bits of Mr. Magorium. And everything else I remembered was like vague memories of some fictionalized version of a much better movie. The only possible explanation I can think of for this is that I watched Mr. Magorium as a child, looked up the movie, but accidentally Googled the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus, somehow read that Heath Ledger played the main character and died, somehow came to the conclusion that Heath Ledger played the character Dustin Hoffman played when I was like 10 or whatever, and then like crafted this better version of the movie in my head. I still, even after watching Magorium and watching Imaginarium, I still have this movie in my head. This fake movie that is a better version.
Is there a third movie that
I thought about looking for one online, like trying to see if maybe what I watched was somehow neither of these, but there's just enough little things in Magorium that I'm like, oh, I do remember that I'm pretty sure I just somehow completely misconstrued or misinterpreted the movie as a child and then later combined it with something else. Because this is as good a time as any, as opposed to move on to the Imaginarium of Doctor.
I was just going to say, do we want to talk about how Dustin Hoffman was an asshole in this movie?
He's just not, his idea of playing whimsy is like, look at me, I'm whimsical and I say big words.
It's such forced whimsy.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's so saccharine and
the movie for no reason has chapters. This isn't a book adaptation. There's no reason for there to be narrative.
It got turned into a book.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a book originally.
And the kid we mentioned earlier, he's the narrator.
Which makes it seem like this is his story.
But then at the very end of the movie, literally as it's fading to black, they clearly added this in, in post at the end. The kid says, and that's the end of Molly Mahoney's story. Literally as it's fading to black.
That definitely feels like they had to redub the ending.
They redubbed something at the end.
Because they don't even cut to a water painting they do with the other ones.
No, they don't. The end of every chapter cuts to
the end and beginning of every chapter.
Nice looking artwork.
Yeah.
And then he reads Chapter 5, Magic in the Toy Store, or whatever they were called. I don't know.
Chapter 5.
But every time the chapter
there's a body in the woods.
Chapter 5, a body has been discovered. Every time time they cut to these chapter cards, I would like groan because it was always just far apart enough that I would forget that that's what they were doing.
It kills the pace every single time.
It kills the pacing.
Like,
the narration is terrible.
Like at some point we paused the movie to like get a refill on our drinks or something, and then we saw that there was 10 minutes left.
And we were like, wait, No. Okay, this was right after the scene where the cube starts being magic. And that's where I was assuming the cube was going to take Jason Bateman and her into some wonderland, some actual fantasy fun, it would have still been forced whimsy, but it would have at least been something other than the boring, dumbass toy store. And then they wake up in the toy store and there's 10 minutes left of the movie, and that's when I realized there was no salvaging this.
Ends.
It's just going to end, and then I'm going to forget about it.
Oh man, we're not going to talk about it anymore because I want this movie to fade from my memory.
I just want to see the version of this movie that was in my head for 10 years.
Which one of the 3 versions of the movie do you think that is?
It's none of them. I created a 4th one that was better than any of the ones Zach Helm came up with.
The secret 4th version.
The Monokuma cut.
Release the Monokuma cut, you cowards.
All
so
right.
that was Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium.
Now, onto the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus.
Do you want to read this? I'll check time.
The Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus is a 2009 fantasy film directed by Terry Gilliam of Brothers Grimm fame. More accurately, Monty Python fame.
Monty Python,
but Brothers
Brazil.
Grimm,
like if you've seen a weird movie and it isn't by David Finch, it's probably by Dr. Terry Gilliam.
But Brothers Grimm is much more representative of what kind of shit this is.
It's somewhere in between like Brothers Grimm and a bad Monty Python sketch.
Yeah, there are parts of it that feel very Monty Python. The Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus is a 2009 fantasy film directed and written by Terry Gilliam. The film follows a traveling theater troupe whose leader, having made a bet with the devil, takes audience members through a magical mirror to explore their imaginations and present them with a choice between self-fulfilling enlightenment or gratifying ignorance. The film stars Heath Ledger, Christopher Plummer, Andrew Garfield, Johnny Depp, Colin Farrell, and Jude Law all respectively play Heath Ledger's character in different scenes.
Tom Cruise wanted to play Heath Ledger.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing. Tom Cruise was like, I'll do it, and Terry Gilliam was like, no.
No.
No, what the fuck?
No.
I don't want you to... Tom Cruise ain't weird enough to be in a movie like this.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is too, like, Chad
He'd play too straight face.
Yeah, he would.
Like that would be good. That would be good comedy if he was like the straight man in a world of insanity.
But this is a weird character, and there are no straight men in this world of insanity. I spent the entirety of Mr. Magorium assuming that this movie was the one I had seen, and that this was what I remembered. And then we start watching it, and I very quickly realized that this is not something I've seen before.
Not only that, he like almost immediately realized I hated it.
I really hated. I ended up like not hating it after the like later. I ended up just being kind of middle on it by the end. But oh man, the first 10 minutes are. I realized immediately that this was not the movie I watched as a child, because I realized that if this is a movie my parents had rented for us to watch when I was a child, they would have turned it off about 10 minutes in when the drunk British man chases the 16-year-old girl into the mirror trying to grab her ass.
15-year-old going on 16-year-old girl.
Because this is like a very... Yeah, okay, so it starts out with the theater troupe.
If you want to taste for what happens in this type of movie... Here, let me just read you this random sentence. Meanwhile, having discovered that Tony is a fraudulent charity scammer who steals organs from orphans in developing countries and sold them to wealthy Westerners.
I would like to say this is Heath Ledger's character, by the way. This is an absurdly complicated plot.
It's so weird that it's so complicated, yet so simple.
Yeah.
Man makes deal with the devil, deal goes bad, man almost loses his daughter. Man makes another deal with the devil to try to get her.
Okay, but it's also so much more complicated than that, because this man is a 600. This man is like an ancient monk
who like reached enlightenment,
and then the devil like took away his It's very
Well, no, like he made a bargain with bargain with the devil that he could save more souls than the devil could.
Yes. And that's what this.
And in return, the devil gave him immortality.
So now he doesn't. Now he doesn't want immortality. That there is the one thing that I liked about this movie, even early on, is it takes place in the present day, but the like troupe is full of these people like.
It almost feels like they were plucked out of time.
Yeah, it feels like they're riding around this awkward cart thing that they drive with like a horse, and that they this like horse and carriage thing that they live in that is also their like stage for their stage show.
Right.
Where in their stage show they have a mirror. If they can get people to go through the mirror,
they'll enter like
the
Dr.
Imaginarium.
Parnassus' dream world.
Which is or it's more like their dream.
It's like their dream world
manifested
being projected
through this thing.
And like in this dream world, they get confronted like with tons of stuff, and they eventually have to make a choice between seeking enlightenment from Doctor Parnassus or like or like expulging in all of their vices and pleasures from the devil.
And the movie introduces this concept in the first sequence with the aforementioned the drunk British man I mentioned going into the mirror.
We're pretty sure he changed faces when he went in, but we're not entirely sure.
I think he changed actors, which was meant to set up the Heath Ledger bit, where because Heath Ledger died, they did this thing where every time his character goes into the Imaginarium, after like every time his character goes into the Imaginarium, he takes on a different face.
Right.
First, it's Johnny Depp, who they clearly couldn't get for shooting for very long.
Yeah.
I looked it up. They had him for like a day, and they had to do all this stuff in one take.
Which makes sense because, like, he was a huge.
This was late 2000s Johnny Depp at the height of his popularity.
The height of his popularity, and also kind of the height of his sleepwalking.
It's a shame though, because this is like of the three actors, he looks the most like Heath Ledger. So first it's Johnny Depp, then it's Jude Law, and then finally...
Who, while looking nothing like Heath Ledger, it was kind of amazing to see him, like, wearing, like basically just bootleg Jack Sparrow.
Johnny Depp makeup. And then finally Colin Farrell, who plays the character when the character's gone to his most villainous.
Yeah.
Which I think fits the best, because of the four of them, Colin Farrell looks the most like... He does the most, like, villainy sneers.
Yeah. I mean, Jude Law can do a good villain sneer, but, like...
That's true.
But, like, you don't want Jude Law to be the villain. He's too cool.
Yeah. That's the thing, is, like, Jude Law was almost, like, too cool to be in that part.
Yeah. He was in the only good... He was in, like, the only, like, really good scene in the movie.
But at the same time, if he was too cool, imagine just how too cool Tom Cruise would have been playing.
Oh, man. What if Tom Cruise was the one who like seduced the lady?
Oh my god. Yeah, okay, so the daughter
there's a lot to talk about with this movie. First things first, I cannot figure out for the life of me if that first scene was was done first and then they couldn't change it because it was already finished and like already locked in. Or if it was done last as a way to try and make sense of this nonsensical plot.
I think it was done last to explain the Heath Ledger bit and establish, because after this scene, they don't go into the mirror for another like 45 minutes.
It is a really long time.
They're driving
like, and then right after this, they have another scene with the mirror, but like it's really short with the kid.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't end up mattering at all.
And
then like
that's a good point.
And then they just don't go in the mirror for ages.
Instead, what they do is they drive around. There's the Christopher Plummer, who plays Doctor Parnassus, the old man, gives his character backstory. The devil basically is going to take his daughter when she turns 16, which they really should have made it 18, because the actress was well over 18.
The actress was well over 18.
And
she looked well over 18.
And the movie constantly sexualizes the character.
We're not saying it would have been. We're not saying it justifies the sexualization if she was 18, but that's that it feels way less gross to sexualize an 18-year-old versus sexualizing a 16-year-old.
Yeah. And they even have one of those ham-fisted "the age of consent is" lines from her, and it's like
the age of consent.
Then again,
in
this
Europe.
is the same movie that put the midget character in blackface halfway through the movie. So
what's sad is that also kind of led into like the only good chunk of the movie.
Yes,
they went back into the mirror.
They go back into the mirror. The one thing I liked about this movie in the first 30 minutes, which I was going to mention earlier, is because they're plucked out of time. They even do it with shots. Like the beginning of the movie has these shots of the stage,
but
that
it looks like a castle or something.
And it's in like the 1700s, and then it cuts to the front of this dingy bar, and then it keeps cutting back and forth, and so I was just so confused. And then they have a tracking shot where the guy from the bar, the drunk British man, moves over to the stage, and you get a full picture of like, oh, so they're almost like plucked out, and they keep doing that. They do these hard cuts from like their fantastical.
I wonder if the movie would have been better. Like, I wonder if the movie might have maybe been better if like Heath Ledger was cut out entirely and it was just about like this evil theater, like this theater troupe who has to take people's souls in order to stay young because they're from like the Middle Ages or something.
Yeah, that would have been.
That would have been kind of cool.
Because they'll cut whenever they cut to like stark present day stuff, it's always like the dingiest, most. It's like the gas station convenience stores, or the seedy bars, or the homeless alleyways, or the like space under the highway.
They don't go to like high class. They don't go to like upper class places until
until Heath Ledger, Colin Farrell, Johnny Depp, Jude Law shows up.
Yeah,
and they find him hanging under a bridge.
They find him as the Hanged Man.
Yes, the JoJo. Christopher Plummer pulls out
he
pulls out the tarot card.
He is literally meant to be the Hangman.
And then they find him hanging from a bridge and save him, bring him into their troupe. At first, he can't remember who he is.
Or maybe he does, but he's not like he's trying to hide it.
Maybe he's pretending the whole time, but it's unclear when.
There's definitely a point where he figures out who he is.
Yeah, for sure.
But
because when the Russian mobsters come chasing him, he knows who they are. And
he's the secret charity worker /
who actually
organ
runs
seller.
So he's basically a con man character.
Who also seem to be laundering money for the Russians on the
But
side.
the thing I actually like that storyline because you don't really know they don't tell you outright that he's a con man right away, and even when they do tell you, they don't really. They take some time to explain the degree of which he's conning. You're kind of watching a lot of it from his perspective.
Yeah, which makes it really weird. Like, it makes it okay, so ostensibly, Doctor Parnassus and I guess by proxy his daughter are kind of meant to be the main emotional.
There's also Andrew Garfield's
of the plot, but because the movie puts so much focus on Heath Ledger, it kind of, for a while, it sort of becomes his movie.
The movie is this movie kind of has the same the one thing in common with Magorium, the one problem both have, is they're trying to make everybody the main character.
It feels like 3 different movies got stitched together.
There's the original draft where I think Parnassus and his daughter are the focus, and
then they signed Heath Ledger on.
Well, yeah, not just. I think it was after. It seems almost like after he died, they expanded the role of the character because most of the scenes,
where Heath Ledger is there, are like.
Okay, so here's how Heath Ledger is Heath Ledger when they're in the real world, but when they're in the Imaginarium, he has different faces, and everything we see of him in the real world feels like it could have been a part of a story where he is a supporting character rather than a lead. Yeah. But it's when you go into the Imaginarium that the focus becomes on him.
Because he does have scenes just focused on him in the real world, but they're not nearly as long or as focused as they are when he's in the Imaginarium.
Whereas the Imaginarium said, okay, so the bit with the scene with the ladders and he's climbing the ladders, that was apparently one of the last things filmed. Which makes sense because it's largely tangential to the story. Basically,
and Jude Law was probably a smaller, or maybe not even a smaller actor, just an easier actor to get.
Basically, the Russian mob chases him into the mirror. Let's just go into the mirror shit in order.
Okay, so first mirror shit, opening the movie. Second mirror shit, kid thing.
There's also the horrible segment where they're trying to get somebody to go into the mirror, and then the ladies want to go in together, and Andrew Garfield's character. Andrew Garfield is in this. Yeah, basically.
This is not a good role. This is not a good look for Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, so
he plays a horny simp for the underage girl.
Which this is okay. So here's the problem. If you wanted to make her 16 specifically so that the con man and the devil flirting with her would be creepy, then that would kind of make sense.
Don't have him.
Then you have Andrew Garfield's character, who's her canon role. Like at the end of the movie, she's with Andrew Garfield's character.
Yeah, she gets reborn or something.
But God, he has to be one of the most unlikable. Heath Ledger's con man was infinitely more likable than Andrew Garfield's punk Anton character.
And he sold child organs.
Yeah.
Oh my God! We're not joking.
Mess.
He is an aggressive simp. He's also a whiny bitch.
He's incompetent at everything he does.
He's incompetent at everything he does. And
there's one scene early on in the movie where he steals Heath Ledger's pipe.
Just because he can.
Just because he can. And we have a 5-minute sequence of just him doing the thing that little kids do to bully other kids in school where they're like, you want it back? You want it back? Oh, go get it. Or you want, I dropped it. Oh, I threw it. Oh, I dropped it. How'd it get in the teapot? And this goes on for 5 minutes. And it didn't even feel like it was in the script. It just felt like Andrew Garfield was actually fucking with Heath Ledger.
And Heath Ledger was not having it. Heath Ledger's, we kind of thought, was Heath Ledger, I'm not even, I don't know if we should say drunk, but, Heath Ledger did not seem to be having a great time on this movie.
Yeah, I'm everybody says the Joker, playing the Joker is what drove
this
him to
movie
death.
is
but
what
this
killed
movie
Heath
feels
Ledger.
A lot, because, his character is, frequent, the whole gimmick is he's trying to avoid getting hanged. The whole purpose of the pipe, which we find out at the end of the movie, was for him to shove it down his throat so he doesn't die when the mobster's hanging.
It feels like they didn't actually hire Heath Ledger. It feels like they abducted him from the Batman set.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments that just feel like they're the actors are genuinely. So the performances are good, I think. Yeah. I don't know if that. I don't know if that's a good. Caught the first time I said that.
Yeah. But okay, so
anyway,
they arrested Colin Farrell. He comes up with this idea because he finds out.
Heath Ledger first.
Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger comes up with this idea to make a profit by.
I think the first hint that he's a con man is just how immediately better he is at weaseling things out of people than any of the people in their troupe.
Right.
And he gets them into this rich area so they can set up a nice show rather than sort of rebranding their show, and that's when the mirror comes back into play.
Yeah.
And so they manage to take so he takes this one woman in there with him and has a dance with her, and that's when he's Johnny Depp during that brief window. Where they clearly does Johnny Depp even say anything?
He says my name's Barry, and then
he looks in the mirror and he's like, never mind, my name's Roger.
He says a couple of things, but clearly he was it was only he clearly didn't say enough that he didn't need to be there for more than a day.
Yeah. So he goes into the mirror, he helps the woman successfully choose the enlightenment path of Doctor Parnassus.
After he robs her blind.
That's right, he does he does manage to get all her money. Then he does this to all her friends. So then the devil, okay, so before this, Doctor Parnassus and the devil make a deal first to fight, because honestly, I like the devil in this movie.
He's very low-key, is really cool.
And he doesn't even seem like he really wants to win this bet that much.
He just likes fucking with people.
He just likes fucking with the old man.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, one more deal, 5 souls, and you...
I also like that, both the devil and Parnassus can't help themselves.
Yeah,
Parnassus they're constantly is, making deals.
Sucked into the deals. So they make this deal, 5 souls. So Heath Ledger gets Dr. Parnassus 4 in this sequence with the Johnny Depp. But then the Russian mob shows up. Russian mobsters that were chasing Heath Ledger's character show up. They chase him into the mirror. He becomes Jude Law. We then have a very Monty Python-esque sequence, which is why you can kind of tell this was filmed at the end and not really in the script, because it just feels like Terry Gilliam coming up with Monty Python ideas. One of the ways that the good guys try to because Doctor Parnassus sits outside of the Imaginarium controlling things to lure people in. He's basically the same as the devil, just not an asshole, which is kind of not as much of an asshole, which is kind of a fun. Yeah. This is like the opposite of Mr. Magorium. Everyone's an asshole, but the movie's aware of it.
So they have fun with it.
Yeah. One of the ways he tries to draw the mobsters to his side is this dancing police this movie's very anti-cop.
Very anti-cop.
This dancing police.
Don't be a mobster. Join the police.
We can beat up people we don't like, and they're dancing around. It's an incredibly Monty Python.
This feels straight out of the Monty Python skit.
And then instead the mobsters get lured to a giant Russian woman, and then
that explodes. And then takes her head off to reveal she's a robot being
controlled by
the devil.
By the devil.
After we just had a scene where Jude Law Ledger ran away from them by climbing a ladder
and then walking on two stilts. This entire sequence was probably definitely the most fun part of the movie.
Absolutely.
And then unfortunately,
if the rest of the movie had this level of zany energy, it would have been a pretty good movie.
So then the mob. This is all just for the mobsters to get caught by the devil at the end, so that he has 4. The good guys have 4. Each needs 1 more. And then
I think the devil kind of tries to convince Parnassus to sacrifice Heath Ledger to save his daughter.
Yeah, something. Okay, well this is where, so by this point Heath Ledger knows the magical stuff is going on. He begs Doctor Parnassus to let him go in. Dr. Parnassus says no, because he knows that Heath Ledger's character is not going to choose the right thing. But also his daughter finds out about the deal with the devil, and so she's
she gets really upset.
And Heath Ledger kind of drags her in to try to help her.
Yeah,
I think that's the last time we actually see Heath Ledger playing the character.
Yeah.
Is that scene where he's begging Dr.
in
Parnassus.
The rain and stuff, so it's kind of hard to tell.
It's possible there are some shots where they had somebody else or did something else with it. But it's you can see the version of the script where it's not as much about him being a con man and more about Dr. Parnassus and his daughter.
Right.
But then they go into the Imaginarium again, and that's where the movie can't decide. 1 second it's about the girl, then the next second it's about the con man, then the next second it's about the girl again, and it's doing both at once.
It keeps switching perspectives from this is the girl's dream, no, this is the con man's dream, no, this is the girl's dream.
Which I guess makes sense because they established that if 2 people go in there at once, the 2 imaginations at once, it messes with it.
Right.
But then that still doesn't explain how Heath Ledger, Johnny Depp, Jude Law, Colin Farrell can go in as a guide for someone.
Maybe it's when you're if you go in at the same time, it's 2 imaginations at once.
Yeah.
But if you go in slightly afterwards, or
that's possible.
You're entering
because the guides never go in at the same time as the person. Really.
Yeah.
It's very complicated.
It's really complicated. The rules are not set up well.
That's why I think the first half hour of the movie is really boring, because it's practically all. Turn on. Maybe crank up the light a little bit. It's practically all. The first half hour is pure setup for all of these things.
Yeah, and it's it's pure setup, and it's also confusing setup, because it's setting up 3 different plot lines, and it's you're not really sure how any of them.
It just feels like some of the characters needed to be cut. Either Andrew Garfield's character or Heath Ledger's character.
Yeah, something needed
to be changed and cut. And I get why Terry Gilliam didn't want to just remove Heath Ledger's character from the movie after he died.
I mean, he went out of his way to hire Heath Ledger's friends to like pay tribute to Heath Ledger.
But then it just ends up becoming this like weird mishmash, and then there's a whole bit at the end where the devil makes one more deal with Doctor Parnassus.
Okay, let's talk about the ending of the movie. The ending of the movie is like goes completely off the rails. So this is where we Ledger, this time being played by Colin Farrell, and
what was his character's name? We should
Tony Shepard.
Yes, Tony Shepard. This time being played by Colin Farrell.
Yeah, and I don't remember the girl's name.
Me neither.
Yeah. No, it was Anton, and then
Anton was Andrew Garfield.
Anton was Andrew Garfield. Valentina.
Yes, Valentina. They get.
I think they shortened it to Val or something.
Yeah, they.
So they go into the dream world together. Shit, like they have sex.
Implied.
They have
off screen.
They definitely have sex, but it's implied off screen. We don't see them having sex. Probably because she's a minor.
Yeah, I mean the actress isn't, but they.
But I mean, like I don't think
deliberate choice.
I don't think you can. Even if the actress isn't a minor, I don't think you're legally allowed.
Right.
To show sex with a minor.
Well, this also wasn't R-rated. I don't think. So
no, it was PG-13.
Yeah.
So and then they like drift on a gondola.
They find this like orphan girl standing around
that Colin Farrell like yells at, but then saves because the press show.
Well, that was I don't remember them ever actually flat out saying that he harvested. Well, that he like stole organs.
I think Anton was trying to say it before he.
Yeah, Anton found it out, but she was like
Valentina into the world.
Yeah. Well, that's what. So Anton follows them because then we transition into Tony's dream, where he's at this like charity gala event with her as his date, and then Anton shows up in the body of like a little kid, and so that's
a little kid. I thought it was supposed to be like a.
It was supposed to be one of the orphan little kids.
Okay.
But of course the immediate thought was like, wait, why didn't they just have the actual short guy character play this part?
Why not just have?
And the reason is that character kind of like left the movie for a while.
I think he was like.
He was tired of being put in blackface and abused.
In universe, he had a fight with Parnassus, and that's why he left. Out of universe, I think the guy had a fight with Terry Gilliam, and that's why he left.
Because I swear, at one point they have him in a monkeyish suit, and then at another point they have him in a devilish suit, and then at another point they have him in blackface. So it's really bad.
Yeah. But
that just lends to the why didn't they just write out Andrew Garfield's character and have the one helping her be the.
And then maybe if you really want to have a con man, why not just have like Andrew Garfield be the con man?
Yeah, or combine the two. I don't know. It's just like so much.
Or just not have Andrew Garfield because he was worthless.
I'm starting to wonder if I just like. What has Andrew Garfield been in that actually proves his worth as an actor?
I think Hacksaw Ridge.
Because like everything I've seen him in, he's just kind of annoying.
Yeah, I'm not like a super fan of Andrew Garfield.
Oh my god, this movie is exhausting my brain.
So this was brain rotting.
This movie was
definitely brain rotting as well.
God, yeah.
So it gets revealed that Tony harvests organs. The dream world starts to fall apart as Tony gets chased by a mob, like an evil mob, an angry mob in his own dream world that are trying to chase him and kill him.
And then she goes off on her own separate thing where she gets...
Like the world falls apart around her and it's really cool looking but utterly confusing.
So they did a bit with the mirror where there's two mirrors she can go through, one to heaven, one to hell. And she picks one. Which one did she pick?
She chose hell.
Okay,
I think what it is.
I thought they were trying to imply that that it looked like she walked through the hell one because after she
that is like the devil was trying to keep her from going to hell because he doesn't want to
because she's the prize.
She's the prize, and also he doesn't want to win. But he doesn't want to win like that.
Yeah, I guess I thought
the devil just doesn't really want to win.
It was so confusing because she goes through the door. They show him look back at the mirror. I thought she was going to heaven and tricking him into thinking she was going to hell because he was looking at it through a reflection.
No, she tricked him by going into the
But
mirror.
what I just described would make way more sense!
Well, I think what the idea is that she doesn't want to go to her father's ideal of heaven because she really kind of hates her father now.
But then her arc never gets resolved.
And I think, okay, what I think it's supposed to be is that, like, her whole life she's never been allowed to make a choice.
She wants to
And so her being able to, so her choosing to go to hell is the first time she made a choice.
But so then the devil goes
It's not very well
Then the devil goes to Parnassus and is one more time is like, if you kill Tony, I'll bring back your daughter.
This is like
the third deal, at least.
And it's also like this is like the first time
this is the first time he's expressed any interest in Tony,
which definitely feels like maybe in the original version before Heath Ledger died.
Maybe in the original version she does go to heaven. Or maybe she goes to hell and it's
I think she
was awful ending.
I assumed she always was
whatever.
to go to hell.
But
what I think was maybe like in the original version, like the devil the relationship between Heath Ledger and the devil was more well conveyed.
Yeah, maybe.
But they just
have
kind
any
of
filmed scenes with Heath Ledger and the devil.
But so they just kind of throw it all into the end where the devil is like, I've been trying to kill this guy for years, but I can't get his soul for some reason. If you can get me his soul, I'll give you your daughter.
So then Christopher Plummer tricks him with the pipe, which even that was a little confusing to me.
Yeah.
But I don't want to talk about it.
Well, he does like the pipe trick that Andrew did earlier.
Yeah.
Another movie with like
that's what. Okay, so
callback.
Andrew Garfield and him. Andrew Garfield, the scene with the pipe early on matters. Once you get to the third act, you're like, oh, that's what that scene was
kind
of
matters.
But in the scene, without knowing the rest of the movie, it just seems like Andrew Garfield is fucking with him.
Yeah. And so he tricks Heath Ledger into swallowing the fake pipe
that will
breaks on like impact.
Yeah.
So that he'll break his neck.
So then he breaks his neck, he dies. The devil brings Dr. Parnassus' daughter back, but not to him. He just revives her as a new person.
Yeah.
And then we have this ham-fisted, dumb ending where Christopher Plummer is a sad homeless man again. He's wandering around. He finds the woman who looks like his daughter, follows her without, getting close enough to alarm her, watches her at dinner with her child and husband, who is played by Andrew Garfield, making him the canon love interest.
The canon love, the true ending.
The true love.
This is the true.
And the true ending is like the lamest one. Then the short guy shows up again,
and he's like, you done fucked up.
Yeah, you fucked up. This is what you get for putting me in blackface. And then he starts hanging out with him again
because he's got nothing better to do.
Yeah, right. I think I don't. Yeah. And then that's the movie.
And then this movie is such a weird, like. It's so fucking
such
bizarre.
A weird script. Like, I don't even...
It's so fear-inducing and
so
strange.
many fear-inducing bits.
It's like... Oh my god. You can definitely tell the person who directed Brothers Grimm worked on this.
Yeah, this is like if Because if anything, Brothers Grimm's flaw is just being like not
super boring.
Okay, Brothers Grimm also has Heath Ledger, by the way. So clearly Terry Gilliam and Heath Ledger really like
were pals or something.
Yeah.
And we didn't research it, but we suspect that maybe Terry Gilliam maybe had something to do with A Knight's Tale, which was like Heath Ledger's first big break.
Yeah, maybe. I don't. Just look up A Knight's Tale right now.
A Knight's Tale.
But
regardless, this is such a bizarre.
The Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus. Definitely not the movie that I thought it was at all. I almost kind of wish it was, but at the same time, I don't.
Nah. Terry Gilliam didn't have anything to do with A Knight's Tale.
What a bizarre movie.
It's
also incredibly British.
It's very British. You could definitely tell that, like, in a weird way, you can definitely tell that the person who made a lot of the Monty Python movies made this.
The Imaginarium has very Monty Python aesthetics.
Very strong Monty Python energy.
There's also this has... You know how in Monty Python at the Holy Grail it ends with the cops showing up? This movie has so many scenes where it's just like something vaguely fantastical is happening, and then the police show up.
Well, what if the movie ended exactly like
I
the
wish
Holy
it
Grail?
did.
We're like the guys
The
putting on the
police
puppet show, and then they just show up and arrest him.
They just arrest Christopher Plummer at the end for killing all of the people.
Yeah. No explanation.
Yeah,
they just do
right.
it.
Well, there's the scene where the girl literally gets kidnapped into the mirror, and then the police show up, and they end up driving their stage away.
Yeah.
And the girl ends up, like, fine-ish. She ends up being the devil's lover. I don't... This is so strange.
Stupid.
We're not talking about...
There's like 1,000 different scenes that never make sense in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Spoilers. This is probably the movie we're gonna exorcise.
Oh, definitely.
We're watching Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus for the podcast. And wait for it.
Oh. All right.
Monokuma.
Now
it's time to talk about
the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, or as I like to call it, the League of Extraordinary Barons. So not only is the Baron a D&D character of mine, but he's also a massive meme amongst my friend group. Most of the memes involve him talking to Monokuma, as if Monokuma was some sort of lover / business partner / father / whatever.
Enemies to lovers, slow burn.
Exactly.
When are you? The two and a half Myra's script when?
Yeah. Oh yes, I'm writing a fan fiction. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which would be better if every character.
LXG.
LXG.
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, also promoted as LXG, is a 2003 diesel punk superhero film.
What the fuck?
Diesel punk is steampunk is lame.
Yeah.
So we're gonna call it diesel
describing the movie as diesel punk is exactly the type of kind of try-hard lameness that I would expect from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Loosely based on the first volume of the comic book series of the same name by Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill. Yes, that's right. Another Alan Moore comic gets butchered by Hollywood. What a surprise.
It's weird because you say butchered, but it's not a complete butchering. Honestly, the movie is so forgettable that I'm shocked it's still, people still know of it. It's still in the cultural zeitgeist.
People still know of it because because it's a boring movie based on what sounds like a not boring premise.
So the premise is
as with the comic books and source material, the film features prominent pastiche and crossover themes set in the late 19th century. So it's basically the Avengers. It's
Avengers / Suicide Squad.
It's the literary
19th century literary characters.
Yeah, it's the literary version of the Avenger Squad.
Mm-hmm. And it's weird how much the movie reminds me of both the Avengers and Suicide Squad, despite coming out almost 10 years before Avengers did.
It's not almost the exact same structure as Avengers.
Yeah, it does. It's weird. It's like bad Avengers. We're just mediocre Avengers.
It was the final live-action role for Connery before his retirement. Oh, he died in 2020?
I didn't know that.
As with the comic book,
after playing Adam Quartermain, he just couldn't do it anymore.
It draws on the works of Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, Bram Stoker,
do not read
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, H. Rider Haggard, Ian Fleming, Herman Melville, Oscar Wilde, Robert Louis Stevenson, Edgar Allan Poe, Gaston Leroux, and Mark Twain. Albeit all adapted for the film.
What Edgar Allan Poe? Wait, there was a lawsuit. Somebody sued them. They didn't get the rights to something.
Oh my god. In 2003, Larry Cohen and Martin Pohl filed a lawsuit against 20th Century Fox, claiming the company had intentionally plagiarized the script
They had a script for a movie called Cast of Characters? That sounds like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but even more generic.
Oh my god.
Good lord.
According to the BBC, the lawsuit alleged that Mr. Cohen and Mr. Pohl pitched the idea to Fox several times between 1993 and 1996 under the name cast of characters. Okay, if that's the case, you should be taking this up with Alan Moore, who wrote the comic book in 1999.
Yeah, what the fuck? Anyway...
Who did not appear? Okay, it's just legalese.
Yeah, this is just LXG is a great premise ruined by poor execution. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
The movie even starts out with decent execution.
It's such a promising setup.
So
it opens on the Bank of the UK.
It opens 1899. The Bank of England being robbed by a tank. And then a guy with a mask who says, "I want the world, the whole world."
The world's mine hair. Shoots
a rocket launcher at a bunch of German blimps and blows them up. So essentially, this character, known as, which later he refers to himself as Phantom with an F.
Oh god.
And as dumb as that is, the reveal of who's underneath is even
stupider.
dumber.
I can't believe when I first saw that character, I'm like, oh my god, future Coleman meme character.
No, it's too lame.
Right here.
Literally have most of the scenes after that. That intro scene of him where he says, "I want the world," and he shoots down the thing.
The first act is
so much.
The first act is actually really good.
Yeah, when they're recruiting everybody, which is usually like in Suicide Squad or Avengers, that's usually like the most boring part. Because that's like the only good part.
Because you either already know all the characters and you're just like, okay,
or you don't care about the characters,
and you're like, why are we here?
Yeah.
But they actually make every character feel kind of cool,
and then
give them a fun introduction.
And then they bring them all aboard Captain Nemo's Nautilus, which is basically this movie's equivalent of like the SHIELD helicarrier. Literally, that's what I mean when I say it has the same plot as Avengers. What are you doing?
Sorry, I have like a
you're
thing in my cheek.
So it starts with the Bank of England gets robbed, then Alan Quartermain, which is Sean Connery.
Okay, wait.
My mouth just do.
Okay, hang on a second. I want to read you this paragraph. For the script, the character of the Invisible Man was changed to an Invisible Man since Fox was unable to obtain the rights to the title character of H.G. Wells' 1987 novel, The Invisible Man. Blah, 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 name change. The Fu Manchu character was also dropped from the script. At Fox's request, the character of Tom Sawyer was added for the American audiences and to give it some youth appeal.
By the way, Tom Sawyer in this movie is not the Tom Sawyer
He's basically just Billy the Kid.
Yeah, you thought he was Billy the Kid.
When he first showed up, I'm like, oh, it's a cowboy. It's a cowboy gunslinger who looks young, but probably is world weary.
Listen to this sad paragraph. This has to be why Sean Connery quit movies. After Sean Connery previously turned down the roles of the Architect in the Matrix trilogy and Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, he agreed to play Alan Quartermain despite not understanding the script. Oh, poor guy. What terrible choices. He's just like, the Matrix, I'll pass. Gandalf? No. Adam Quartermain. Fine, I'll play Adam Quartermain.
Now you have my attention.
The worst part is, it doesn't even sound like he liked that character any better. It just sounds like his agents assured him that, okay, please choose this one. This is going to be a big franchise like Lord of the Rings or The Matrix. And then it just bombed.
Oh, man.
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. This movie would be better if it was just a bunch of different clones of my D&D character, the Baron.
Yeah, a League of Extraordinary Barons. You have
Baron, Blood Baron, Giga Baron, Baby Baron,
Poop Baron,
Poopy Baron. Because honestly, genuinely,
okay,
we reference this only because literally for the entire movie, I could not stop repeating Sean Connery's
I know
lines.
Sean Connery has basically just the Baron's voice as like his.
But he's also doing a voice in this. He's scrunching his face up like this. He's talking in this little accent.
Monokuma. I don't like.
And then they recruit him and they take him to meet with all the other dudes. And a guy named M is organizing everything. And I'm just immediately like, M, it's Monokuma. It's Monokuma. Monokuma, it's me. The mask is fucked.
If only if it was Monokuma.
If only if it was, yeah,
It's much stupider.
It should have
than
been Monokuma leading a lead. I also mention this because this whole movie, in addition to feeling like Avengers and Suicide Squad, also feels like a bad D&D campaign.
It feels like a
like they're gathering all these characters together and sending them on this quest that isn't even very well explained.
No.
Like, what did they go to Venice to do?
Stop a bomb.
By blowing up another building? That's what they did.
I was genuinely confused.
Yeah, we were both. So,
I was trying to pay attention for that movie, but
Maybe
I
the
was
plot
genuinely
explains-
confused about what they did to stop the crisis.
Quatermain. Adam Quatermain.
There we go.
M, Phantom, the Nautilus. The Nautilus arrives in Venice.
The League travels to Venice in Nemo's submarine, the Nautilus, but they soon detect that there may be a mole on board.
Oh yeah, there's a traitor, and then also another traitor that's the real traitor. The Nautilus arrives in Venice.
Why would they have... Okay, spoilers for
No,
this
it is
movie.
not explained at all.
The spoilers for this movie that no one should see, they set up that Skinner, the Invisible Man, is going to be the traitor.
Which, okay, the fact that they couldn't get the copyright, that's why they made the Invisible Man in this movie. It isn't the scientist who created the Invisible Man formula. It's a thief who stole the formula that got caught by the British government, according to M. That got caught by the British government, but they're still using him as the Invisible Man instead of trying. But then this is halfway through. It's revealed that the British government was never recruiting them at all, and that M is not Monokuma, but in fact Moriarty,
who is
Sherlock.
being who's
M is both the Phantom and Moriarty.
Oh, you ruined two characters at once.
And they ruined the primary Sherlock. I feel like the only reason Sherlock Holmes isn't in this movie is the Arthur Conan Doyle estate would have a temper tantrum if he was.
Yeah, he was this
Just
movie
because
came out.
These characters are also butchered.
Yeah, this came out in 2003, and the Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes came out in 2009. But I'm almost convinced they take place in the same.
They could easily take place in the same universe, and this is just after all of that, and Sherlock Holmes just didn't even get involved.
Yeah.
Because M brings them all together, and then he reveals that he's Moriarty, and that the secret traitor, who they thought was the Invisible Man, which would have made more sense because he was a thief, they thought he was the traitor, but it was actually...
According to the League, they're declaring that their true goal is to ignite the world war, and that Fedorian has been collecting physical elements of...
No more reading the wiki. More wiki.
Oh my god. This is the movie. This type of movie requires a wiki.
No, it doesn't. Imaginarium is the one that didn't make sense without a wiki. This movie is just the kind of movie that you read a wiki about instead of watching.
Yeah.
Because then nothing is lost by just reading the wiki. So Dorian Gray is actually the traitor, who was probably the most interesting of the League.
Because he was he was trying to be on a redemption arc. It seemed like.
Okay, so we haven't listed who is in the League.
Alan Quatermain, who's
from the book King Solomon's Mines, which neither of us had ever heard of.
If you don't know who this is because you're a normal person, he's basically British Indiana Jones, but from
Indiana Jones.
British Indiana Jones from 100 years ago.
Then there's Captain Nemo, played by, I believe, Tony Shalhoub of Monk fame.
Yeah.
Right? No, it wasn't. That wasn't Tony. He looked a lot like Tony Shalhoub. Oh wait, did they actually cast somebody of a Middle Eastern descent to play the character?
Because it doesn't.
Okay.
He doesn't look.
It looks like they put a dude with slightly darker skin in a fake beard and turban for the character. And so it just felt weird the whole time. So Captain Nemo and his sub, the Nautilus, which actually has a really cool design that clearly most of their CGI budget went to. It's this massive long submarine, but it's also as narrow as a sword.
Yeah.
So it can. So when they travel around in it, and they can sneak into the canals of Venice, and
by just being so tiny that no one
in narrative, it's essentially just a shield helicarrier from the Avengers, though.
But it's cooler than the helicarrier.
This movie has a very similar plot. Avengers?
So yeah, here's the similarity to Avengers. They the league assembles to face an initial threat, who they then deal with, only for there to be a traitor / a secret secondary plan that involves sabotaging the base, trying to get the league to sort of fall apart from the inside, and then the secret bad guy is working. And then the secret bad guy is working on starting a war to get a thing.
It's also all plots similar, and there's just a similarity in first act is recruiting First act is getting everybody together. Second act is they all team up on their super base and then fuck around for a while the movie slows down. And then third act is the epic cool final battle. Except in this movie, the final battle
is really
they didn't Avengers figured out how to do it so everybody's fighting together. This is just each character has their own boss fight, and it feels like a bad D&D camp. It feels like a D&D combat.
There is no flow. There is no flow or connection to these events. Yeah. They might as well be happening in entirely different locations. It's so similar in structure to Avengers that there's even a scene where the Hulk substitute character goes on a rampage at the exact same time that it happened in Avengers,
and on the base too. He does. Jekyll and Hyde is basically turned into literally just the Hulk.
Down to even the fact that when we first get introduced to him, it's he's able to.
They basically have that's my secret cap. I'm always angry. It's eerily similar.
Yeah.
And that's what. But it also feels like Suicide Squad in that you've got a band of characters that don't really seem like they want to be there.
For vague reasons,
fighting a vague threat.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like Suicide Squad in that it's poorly written, just like Suicide Squad. But in structure, it much more weirdly resembles the Avengers.
And then there's did we want to just talk about the one good part of the movie, that first act?
Well, the first act is basically just recruiting everybody. But it's fun.
Yeah,
the action sequence.
We get this fun scene where Alan gets recruited while he's in a retirement home in Africa, and he kills a bunch of people, but then the retirement home blows up. It sounds lame, but it's actually kind of a fun scene.
He gives a fine performance. I mean, as much as I would making fun of the voice,
he definitely pulls off old Indiana Jones.
Yeah, he's complete with the not.
And then there's the scene where we meet all the other League members, the Invisible Man.
The Invisible Man.
Nemo,
we still haven't properly listed them all. The Invisible Man. Nemo, Mina, who is Dracula's lover, in this version also became a vampire.
Yeah, she's the main girl from Bram Stoker's Dracula.
She's also basically there so that they have a woman. We compared them each to Avengers. She was Black Widow just by virtue of being the badass
female,
and then we have
Tom Titty.
Tom Sawyer is Captain America. Alan Quartermain is Iron Man / Nick Fury.
Yeah. If Nick Fury was an active combatant.
Dr. Jekyll and Hyde is Hulk, obviously. Nemo is Thor in that he sort of has this proper way of speaking, and he's sort of the outsider who's not from where they're all from.
Yeah.
Because he's not European. Thor is very European, but he's
also
from space.
Yeah, he's from space, and even in the myths, he's from God.
And then Dorian was Iron Man, and then he betrays It's like Iron Man if he betrayed everybody.
Iron Man if he betrayed everyone for a really dumb reason.
For money or something. Yeah.
I betrayed the Avengers for money. Then Captain America's aren't you a billionaire?
He betrays them because Moriarty has his painting, right?
I think it's he portrays him because Moriarty has his painting, and
but
also
then at the
because
end he gets his painting back.
Yeah, and also because he kind of says it's I'm basically immortal, so I don't really care about morals.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if the Dorian. I haven't read the book, But I don't think the Dorian Gray myth is just this immortal guy who faces no consequences.
No, it's meant to be like a either response or modernization of the myth of Narcissus.
Yeah, I don't. So they kind of just frame him as this like immortal, invulnerable to harm character. And then in the end, he sees his painting and dies. But he's still easily the most interesting, even after he betrays he's the most interesting of the lead.
Which is a shame because they then try to ruin they try to make him less interesting by basically ruining his character with what was originally a fun performance being turned into like this.
He also has this past love
bad
affair.
Loki. Like, that's what
he is like Loki.
They try to
should have seen the signs. He's the Loki.
They try to turn him into like Loki, but worse.
Yeah. He is like Loki if Loki was working with the Avengers at first and then betrayed them halfway through.
Yeah. That's a much better description.
Yeah. And then I think we've listed them all.
Tom Sawyer.
Oh yes, Tom Sawyer that I literally keep forgetting about. There's a whole subplot about Alan Quartermain.
He's like being the surrogate.
He's
being
Tom
the daddy.
Sawyer's father figure and teaching him how to shoot.
But
the whole thing is dumb because literally his introduction scene is he follows the League to Dorian's house and then helps save them when Phantom makes his introduction and brings a bunch of goons to kill them.
Yeah. And that was a really cool scene.
That was a good action scene. The movie gets bad.
Like, as soon as they get on the Nautilus.
It's the second act. As soon as they're all on the Nautilus and they're just doing nothing, which, to be honest...
That was also the kind of flaw of Avengers.
That's also where Avengers gets slow, but the difference is Avengers at least has a good third act fight to like...
And the characters are fun enough, interesting enough that you're willing to stick through it.
Because you have previous movies establishing the Avengers.
Right.
This is more like Suicide Squad in that none of the characters are previously established and their motives for even doing this are
vague at best and super selfish or stupid at worst.
Like, there's really no reason that the thief guy is actually a hero. And
he should have
for a little bit in the movie, when we find out Dorian is the traitor, we were like, "Where's Skinner? Where's the Invisible Man?" Did he get killed and his invisible body's around somewhere? And then he contacts them like, "I snuck away with M and Dorian," and I'm like,
"Why?"
Reconnaissance in their base. I'm like, what motive does he have to do that?
Like, I guess the motive is, like, free,
especially because the person who recruited him to do this is a bad guy.
Okay, let's talk about Moriarty and how stupid it is.
He's so dumb.
So first off...
I'm just checking. Keep going.
So Moriarty is Phantom. He has orchestrated this whole thing to try to incite a war. So, to the point that he then gathered these members together to form a fictional league so that he can harvest their talent for himself. But then he talks about the league as if it's like an actual thing that actually exists.
He, in the same villain monologue, says to them, "There was no league. There was no league all along." And then a few sentences later says, "It doesn't matter that you guys stopped my initial war plan. I'm going to use the league to start a war." He's basically harvested each of their powers so that he can recreate super soldiers out of them. But it doesn't why would he tell them that? Why would he go with the Phantom thing in the first place? And the Phantom is so lame as well.
Why not just trick them into doing his dirty work? Basically,
every time we see the Phantom, he is running away from them and having his schemes foiled. And then after he gets demasked, he's like, "Oh, but I'm Moriarty, and I was tricking you the whole time, and this is what I wanted you to do. Except you also foiled my initial plans, but it's fine because it's all part of a new plan."
Also, I'm going to use the League to fight the League so that I can form a super league that we can then use to take over the world.
It's so small brain. Monokuma and the real Moriarty would be ashamed.
I'm convinced now that this guy is not Moriarty.
No.
And is in fact just because Alan Quartermain's mythical son, all grown up.
Yeah, he also, every time he fights Alan Quartermain, he makes references to the dude's son, as if that's a major plot point that A, he would know about, and B, we're supposed to care about.
Yeah.
And to the point where we kept thinking he was going to be his son somehow.
Because the movie wasn't stupid enough already.
Yeah, no, because there's one scene where they mentioned, didn't Moriarty die? And he's like, yes, but I was reborn. And it's unclear if he's saying,
he faked his death,
faked my death, or if he's some Moriarty knockoff, which is what I choose to believe.
I refuse to believe that this loser is Moriarty.
I choose to believe that the Sherlock Holmes movies already happened.
Yeah.
Sherlock beat Moriarty, and then this movie came around where a Moriarty imitator just decided to form this League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and then fuck with everything.
Oh, God.
And then we get to the final battle, which is just invading his... It's such a boring... It's like, villain has a factory... Take down the factory, and each character has their own little boss fight. Like, Hyde is fighting a bigger Hyde that is some of the worst CGI I've ever seen.
Awesome. Hyde already looks terrible.
Hyde already looks terrible, but this thing was, hard to look at.
It's on the level of live-action Scooby-Doo.
It really is. And Nautilus was, helping him with that one. So they have their battle. Mina is fighting Dorian. Alan Quartermain is sword-fighting Moriarty for some reason.
Despite him being a person who uses a gun, and Moriarty not being a frontline fighter.
The Invisible Man is fighting another invisible soldier. Somehow, in 2 days, this factory has built an army of clones of like an army of Nautilus ship clones. Even though they got the blueprints for the Nautilus, there's no way they could have even built one in that time. Yeah, it makes no sense. It's just it feels like D&D. It's bad D&D.
Like you had this idea for the final boss, but
Jack,
you didn't know how to get there,
my DMs, if you're watching this, all of the boss fights you've created are better than this sequence.
Yeah, we're not talking about any of your guys' campaigns. We're talking about if you've seen the movie Dungeons and Dragons, it's that type of paint by numbers.
And by that
bad
point,
campaign.
we're just I was so enjoying the first act and even kind of enjoying the second act that I was
we were like, oh, this is kind of interesting at first because it's oh, we're learning more about Dorian. Oh, we're learning more about his relationship to Mina. It's fun because we're getting cool dynamics with these characters. I wonder where it's going, and then it kept going.
It was guilty pleasure tier until the third act, where I just realized I was so bored and uninterested in the final battle. If they had made a good final battle, they might have been able to salvage it. But
it is
so long. It's so unnecessary. The way Moriarty dies is via dumb resolution of the Tom Sawyer learning to shoot subplot.
Tom Sawyer learns to shoot despite the fact that his introduction scene
knew how to shoot. Also, this is definitely a movie that does not care what kind of gun the characters are using to shoot long range.
In his introduction,
I'm pretty sure Tom Sawyer pulls out pistols and shoots guys off roofs several times.
In his introduction scene, Alan Quartermain snipes a guy from 900 yards away using a shotgun.
Yeah. But that was for when the movie starts out with a tank breaking into the Bank of England, you're okay, fine. I turned my brain off and I was enjoying it.
It obviously isn't going for realism.
But the fact that I turned my brain off to enjoy it and I still couldn't enjoy it by the end, I could see why some people might like this movie. I could see why it would be somebody's guilty pleasure, but you can't deny that it is not. It is a massive waste of potential.
It is a waste of potential, and in my opinion, it is a waste of your time.
It's not even on one hand, also, even if it was it's a reminder, for anybody who complains about superhero team-up movies nowadays, it's a reminder of how boring a superhero team-up movie could be.
Yeah. Hollywood will find a way to make even the most interesting concept sound incredibly boring and cliche.
And also, I think this movie may have because I've never been a huge fan of the first Avengers, for a lot of the reasons we complain about stuff in this. The first Avengers slows down when they all get on the helicarrier.
Right.
Just like this slows down when they all get on the Nautilus.
Is it making you like Avengers more?
Yes, this movie retroactively makes me like Avengers more
because it made you realize because you saw what Avengers.
Because at least Avengers is competent, and this movie is not.
No, not
this
at
movie
all.
isn't competent.
Oh boy!
And now it's Exorcism.
We need to invent.
Wait. It's Exorcism time.
Monokuma.
And we're going to exercise movies now.
Mr. Magoriums.
Wrong one. The Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus.
The Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus Magorium Podorium.
The League of Extraordinary Imaginarium Magorium.
The Magorium Exploratorium of
Extraordinary Emporium.
Emporium Magoriums. Izuku Midorium. From Bucanorium, Hackadorium, Herodorium, Herculeorium. Cats 2019. Do you need me to say anything else? What I just said makes more sense.
What you
the
just
abomination
said,
of
Imaginarium
of Dr. Parnassus.
I think you need to exercise this before the demon. I think it's
The
moving
demon
to
is
you. The
escaping
demon is
into
escaping
me.
to you. And to me, poo-hoo-hoo, you can't see the mask. The truth of
Avast ye Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus! Fuck.
You didn't hit it. Okay. Turn on the lights. Fear!
Fear!
Fear! Arrivederci!